On June 28th, Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated in Sarajevo by a Bosnian Serb nationalist. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia, not just for the killing, but for fueling the fire of Slavic rebellion. For years, Serbia had supported pan-Slavic movements that threatened Austria-Hungary's fragile empire. Now, Vienna saw its chance to strike. But it didn't move alone. Germany offered a blank check, unconditional support if war broke out. With Berlin behind it, Austria-Hungary drafted an ultimatum so harsh it was meant to be refused. 10 demands, including one that no sovereign nation could accept. Allow Austrian officials to operate inside Serbia to hunt down conspirators. Serbia hesitated. It accepted most terms, but rejected foreign interference. That was all Austria-Hungary needed. The rejection wasn't a failure of diplomacy. It was the green light for war. The ultimatum was never about peace. It was about punishment. And it lit the fuse for a war no one could control. In the years before 1914, Europe was a web of promises, each one tying nations together in a dangerous knot. At the center stood two great camps. On one side, the Triple Alliance: Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. Germany and Austria-Hungary were bound in steel, committed to defending each other no matter the threat. Italy's role was less certain, but on paper, it too stood with them. Opposite them was the Triple Entente: France, Russia, and Britain. This was not a single binding treaty, but a series of agreements built on mutual need. France and Russia pledged to defend each other if attacked. Britain, wary of Germany's growing navy and ambition, sided with France and Russia to maintain the balance of power. The result was a continent locked in mutual suspicion. Every move by one alliance was matched by a counter-move from the other. Every crisis carried the risk of drawing in more than just the nations directly involved. Then, on June 28, 1914, the spark came. Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was assassinated in Sarajevo by a Serbian nationalist. What could have been a regional conflict now threatened to pull in the whole continent. The web of alliances began to tighten, and Europe marched toward war. On July 28, 1914, Austria-Hungary unleashed its fury on Serbia. Artillery shells tore through towns and villages, a violent declaration that diplomacy had failed. Hundreds of thousands of Austro-Hungarian troops crossed the border, expecting a swift campaign. But Serbia, though smaller and less equipped, refused to yield. Soldiers used their knowledge of the mountains and forests to launch ambushes, slowing the invaders at every turn. Civilians bore the brunt of the bombardment, homes destroyed, families fleeing, rivers and roads clogged with refugees. What was meant to be a demonstration of power quickly became a brutal struggle for survival. Across the border, Russia, the protector of Slavic nations, watched closely. The Russian government ordered partial mobilization to support Serbia, hoping to deter Austria-Hungary from total conquest. But Germany, allied with Austria-Hungary, saw this as an unacceptable threat. On August 1, 1914, Germany declared war on Russia, transforming a regional conflict into a continental one. What began as artillery pounding Serbian towns had now sparked a chain reaction. Alliances pulled nations into war, and Europe braced itself for a conflict of unprecedented scale. The bombardment of Serbia was no longer an isolated attack. It had become the first thunderclap of a war that would engulf the continent.